Okay, so let's talk about Kier Starmer's plan for Ukraine, which in my opinion is just a ridiculous plan. So before we do that, we just need to go back a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks ago, it was clear that the US were somewhat losing interest in the Ukraine war. So you had President Macron of France convene a meeting because he likes the limelight. He wants to be the big man, and he convened a meeting which nothing much come of. Then he convened a second meeting where they kind of hatched a plan where they were talking about sending European troops to Ukraine if they can get some peace. Anyway, then both Macron went to Washington and he got a refusal of American backing for that. And then Starmer went to Washington and he got the same brush off by Trump. And then finally Zelensky went to Washington and all hell broke loose. There was a big kerfuffle and it ended up with Zelensky getting kicked out of the White House. And then Zelensky came from the White House straight back to London, where, oh my God, he was the big hero. You know, Kier Starmer even ran out into the street to hug him, and I this just baffles me. Anyway, Kier Starmer arranged to have some meetings with him, which they did, and then he was wheeled off to meet King Charles. I've no idea why that was the case. In my opinion, the British monarchy should keep completely neutral on politics, so I think that was really not good optics. Anyway, yesterday Kier Starmer then called another. Apparently this meeting had been arranged about a week ago, but they had this big meeting where he invited lots of European leaders, and Zelensky was there, and they were all falling over themselves to pledge their allegiance. We're going to stand with Ukraine and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, at the end of this meeting, Kier Starmer announced this 4-point plan. And this 4-point plan went something like this. So the first point was strengthening Ukraine now, which basically means sending more money and more weapons to Ukraine. Well, there's a couple of problems here. One, that the UK especially, but a lot of other European countries don't have that money. So basically they've taken that money off UK taxpayers, money that should be helping British people to give to Ukraine. And secondly, there is not the weapons to send to Ukraine. You heard Starmer announce that he's going to send 5,000 of these munitions to Ukraine. Well, they have to be made first. That's going to take some time. Apparently they're being made in Belfast. That's going to take some time. So Europe just don't have the weapons to send to Ukraine, and by the time they do, it might be too late. Ukraine might not even exist at that time. Second, ensuring Ukraine's sovereignty in peace talks. So this means that Ukraine must be present, at the negotiations about the end of the war. Well, that's pretty much a given, and I think that the US have always said that the negotiations should be between Ukraine and Russia. Obviously, other countries have got to be involved. But also, I think when he talks about sovereignty, does he mean that he expects Russia to withdraw from the territories of Donbass and Crimea? Because that's just something that is not going to happen. Russia are not going to withdraw from those territories. In fact, Russia sees those territories as now part of Russia. And then the next thing is if and once a peace deal is negotiated, that they will boost Ukraine's arms and defences, so they will build up Ukraine's defences and military, so that Russia doesn't think about attacking Ukraine again in the future. Well, there's a big problem with this, because if you look at what Russia have said right from the start, they've said that they don't accept that that Ukraine should have a big army. They see that Ukraine should remain neutral. Russia will see that if the West are arming Ukraine, de facto it will be a member of NATO, although technically it won't be a member of NATO, by the West filling Ukraine full of armaments and building up its military. Russia will see that as nothing short of Ukraine being part of NATO. And fourth, Starmer talks about this coalition of the willing, sending, the way he put it, his boots on the ground and planes in the air over Ukraine. Now, this is all well and good, but right now, apparently only the UK and France and maybe a couple of the other small Baltic states like Estonia, who have an army of 2,000 or something like that, are willing to do so. Now, at most, I reckon the UK could muster 50,000 men. It probably got less than 100 tanks. Not really that much, because over the last 25 years, successive governments have run down the UK armed forces. So it's really not, the way Starmer talks, if we're some massive power that, can take on the world, well, the British and the French would have no chance taking on the Russian army. I believe Russia have about 1 million men in the theatre of the Ukraine conflict. So there's no chance on earth that, the UK are ever going to be able to take Russia on. And I think Starmer knows this. And I think that's why he's said that he needs to get the backing of America. Well, I don't think America are going to give that backing. I think Trump and the American administration have been quite clear that, unless Zelensky does a deal, America are out of there. And, whether this minerals deal, that's all a bit of a funny one. There's rumours Zelensky has signed over these minerals to the UK in this 100-year agreement he signed with Starmer recently. But this is all rumour at the moment. But this mineral deal was to give Ukraine some security. But I think categorically America are not going to put their soldiers in the way of Russian bullets. That's for sure. And I think Trump is fed up with funding Ukraine for this never-ending war. I personally think that if Starmer had any sense, he wouldn't say that, because all that will happen is so okay, take this scenario. UK have got troops there, and Russia have already said that they will treat them as combatants if they're not there under a United Nations mandate, which they won't be, because Russia has a veto in the UN Security Council, so it's never going to happen. But let's say if the UK and France put those troops there and put their planes there, what happens when Russia attacks those troops? What happens when 500 British soldiers are coming back in body bags? What happens when Russia shoots down 1, 2, 3 British planes? Are the UK gonna launch an attack against Russia in retaliation? Are they gonna just accept those losses, or are they gonna withdraw the troops? I really don't think that the British politicians have thought this through. And I honestly don't believe, I think there's a small group of elites, politicians and a group of elites in the UK who are making these decisions. I very much doubt that a vast majority of the British or the European public would support European force fighting Russia. I just don't see that, and we've seen that. We've just had elections in Germany. The AfD, they've got a significant part of the vote, but because the way the voting system works, they have no representation in the Bundestag, and this is very, very similar to the UK system. It wasn't so many years ago that UKIP, the UK Independence Party, polled about 30% of the popular vote, didn't even get one seat in the parliament, not one seat. So that's how the incumbent parties keep other parties out of parliament in the UK. But yeah, I mean, I really think that Trump and his administration are actually seeing the reality. This war has gone on for 3 years now. It's clear Ukraine are losing. The only way Ukraine could potentially win is by America's support on the battlefield, and America are not willing to give that support. Trump wants out, and that's very, very clear. So the most sensible thing for the Europeans to do will be to broker a peace deal. Now, if that means Ukraine loses territory, it means Ukraine loses territory. Because at the moment, thousands and thousands of young men, both from Ukraine and Russia, are dying each week. And that's really not good. Ukraine are not going to defeat Russia. It's pretty obvious. They're much smaller. They're running out of men. There's not enough arms to send them. US has had enough. So, all this talk by Starmer and Macron and these other Europeans, they like to talk big, but to be honest, they're a bit of all talk and no action, because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the weapons. It's very easy to sit there in their plush offices in Downing Street, in Brussels, in Paris, to talk about this. Now, there's many families there, like me. I have a son that would be of military age. If Starmer started conscripting, he would probably have to be called up. I don't want that for my son. So, this talk that Starmer is going is just absolutely ridiculous, and I completely disagree with this. All they're doing is pushing to start World War III, and that is really not good. Anyway, that's my talk for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. But as always, for now, take care.